I love when movies or television series present us with interesting moral debates, especially when people could reasonably find themselves on either side of said debate. And Invincible Season 3 did just that with Cecil and Mark's falling out. I've peeped the comment sections and Reddit forums, and it seems like the fanbase is generally conflicted on who was in the right, which of course means that the show has done its job and crafted a truly interesting moral dilemma. So today I want to analyze why Cecil and Mark ultimately came to blows, and why they both have an understandable stance, yet are letting their egos and emotions get in their way. Mark's stance is quite simple. He views D.A. Sinclair and Darkwing 2 as monstrous individuals due to their past crimes, and the fact that they've murdered numerous people. He wants them to both be in prison serving time for their crimes. Now, Cecil led Mark to believe that both of these men were indeed imprisoned, when in actuality he had been working with them behind the scene. And this is a pretty blatant betrayal of trust. Cecil lied to Mark, and Mark now wants him to make it right. And on the surface, this is understandable in my opinion. I know that the Reaniman and Darkwing did save everyone, but I truly believe that Mark's frustration entirely stems from the fact that he was lied to, and so was every other hero. Mark has put his life on the line numerous times to try and save this planet. Omniman could have killed him, Anissa could have killed him, and without Mark, the Earth would be under Viltrum rule right now. So in Mark's mind, he thought that he and Cecil were truly working together to accomplish the same goals, holding the same morals. And this revelation shocks Mark and probably led him to wonder what else he had been lied to about. And as we'd soon find out, Cecil also implanted a countermeasure into Mark's head without his knowledge. So clearly Cecil was never truly all that trusting of Mark and always viewed him as a potential threat that he might have to deal with one day. So when Invincible grabs him by the throat and tells him that he'll never work for him again, I understand where he's coming from. He doesn't want to work with someone who he doesn't trust. Now, Cecil's stance is all about protecting the world. Morals don't hold much weight for Cecil. If you can help protect his planet, then Cecil will enlist your help regardless of who you are and what you've done. And he will also create countermeasures to take you out in the event of you turning against him one day. Cecil has watched former heroes cause great destruction to his planet, such as Omniman, so he is sort of like Batman in a way, creating contingency plans when he deems them necessary. He thinks he can either be a good guy or the guy who protects his planet, and so he openly makes the choice to abandon the morals he once held. Which again I think is understandable. Cecil is a principled man who in his mind has one responsibility: protect the planet. And he thinks using guys like D.A. Sinclair and Darkwing will help with this goal, and to be fair in this instance, they did. Ultimately, I think this debate is a good old Machiavellian moral quandary. Do the ends justify the means? That's what a lot of this really comes down to, because the results are on Cecil's side. Using D.A. Sinclair and Darkwing helped save every hero from Doc Seismic. But does that result justify how Cecil achieved it? And while I understand why someone could fall on either side of that question, I think my ultimate answer is that it does. In this case, the ends do justify the means. However, both Cecil and Mark handled themselves pretty poorly in their confrontation. I believe both demonstrate a lack of understanding and inability to look past their own ego and emotions. Mark wants Cecil to immediately make things right and essentially just completely bend to his moral code, while Cecil wants Mark to just completely ignore the situation. Neither is willing to budge from their moral stance or to attempt to approach this dilemma with an understanding of the other side. Mark spent all of Season 2 trying not to be like his dad, and has come to lean on his strict moral code as the key thing that distinguishes him from his father. So seeing that Cecil is not living by a similar moral code pisses him off. And I believe Mark came into that conversation far too hot-headed and unappreciative of the help that the Reaniman and Darkwing provided because of his personal frustration. While Cecil failed to take Mark's moral objections seriously, and failed to treat Mark like a human being in all honesty, I think Cecil truly only sees Mark as a weapon to use against other Viltrumites. Mark's feelings and re-earning his trust means nothing to Cecil, which is a huge mistake in my opinion. Even if just to placate Mark, Cecil should have taken Mark's objections seriously. He talked to Mark as if he was a child, as he sighed and just generally acted like the conversation was beneath him. And I think Cecil's tone speaks to the fact that he deep down kind of wanted the chance to humble Mark, in a way that he never got to do with Omniman. Cecil sort of half-heartedly told Mark to just go home, and then essentially proceeded to threaten Mark with Reaniman, claiming that they were for his protection. And when you really think about it, Cecil is the one who begins the physical altercation through his Reaniman. And very importantly, once Mark has taken out the Reaniman who were visible, we got a moment where the conflict could have ended. Mark simply wants Cecil to tell the other heroes what he's done and who he is working with behind the scenes. He wants Cecil to be transparent with everyone. And Cecil refuses to do this because he knows how a lot of the Guardians of the Globe are going to feel about it. Most people don't want to feel like they're merely a weapon to be used by someone. So Cecil makes the decision that he'd rather fight Mark and try to incapacitate him than to be honest with everyone. And this is where Cecil is in the wrong. Using Darkwing and D.A. Sinclair for their abilities is not the problem in my eyes. The problem is how he treats the people he works with. They are merely weapons to be used, or weapons to be decommissioned when they're no longer useful to Cecil. So when Cecil tells Mark to be reasonable, it's quite ironic, because Cecil himself is not being reasonable in that moment either. Again, Mark is also approaching the conversation far too emotionally with unreasonable demands. But in what right mind can you threaten someone, establish that you planted a chip in their ear that could kill them, and then tell them to be reasonable? Especially after we see Cecil's backstory and the fact that he used to hold very similar ideals to Mark. You'd think having gone through a very similar emotional struggle would give Cecil some perspective on what Mark is going through. But yet he approaches the altercation with no understanding. And in my opinion, the reason this clash between Cecil and Mark is so fascinating is because they are both in the wrong, but for different reasons. Mark is in the wrong when it comes to accepting that people can become reformed, and Cecil is in the wrong with how he treats the people he works with. Again, even if just to placate them, Cecil should do a better job of approaching them as human beings, rather than just weapons to be used or discarded as he sees fit. Because this treatment ultimately ends his working relationship with many of them. So at the end of the day, Cecil is in the right when it comes to allowing Sinclair and Darkwing to atone for their crimes through helping them protect the world, but he handles Mark and really most of his heroes completely incorrectly. And honestly, this type of dynamic makes for the best conflicts to watch, because not only does it create really fascinating discourse amongst the fanbase, but it also forces you as a viewer to have to critically analyze what you're watching. Simply put, no matter what side of the debate you fall on, this show is awesome. Well, if you made it this far, please let me know in the comments, who do you think was more in the right, Mark or Cecil? I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please feel free to drop a like or subscribe for more Screen Stories content. Until next time, peace.